please give a big hand. Guy has come here. This is the third time now, isn't it, Guy?
Yep.
Come here from the UK. He's the research director of Ampere Analysis, which is one of the finest analyst firms on the planet, in my view. He's going to come and talk about commercial television in the age of streaming. Isn't that right? Let's give Guy a big round of applause, please.
Great. Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Justin. That's exactly what I'm going to talk about, commercial TV in the age of streaming, and what the message out there is for commercial TV in a streaming future. 2 seconds on who we are. Ampere Analysis, London-based research firm, data, hopefully some insight as well, and we work with clients such as those. So we talk a lot about streaming, and we talk a lot when we talk about streaming about SVoD, subscription models. So what on earth has SVoD got to do with commercial TV and indeed advertising supported models? Well, I would argue quite a lot, because SVoD has kicked off a cycle that has changed the way that people view content. And that is an important cycle, and it is self-perpetuating, because of course commercial free-to-air players move into that sort of model, move into streaming, move into BVoD, as we call it, broadcaster video on demand, which perpetuates further change. We are in a cycle that is not going to stop, and it is going to continue. That is not a negative, that is a good thing as long as you capitalize upon it. The agenda should not have been, or the question should never have been, is Netflix going to carry advertising when we think about streaming? It should have been, and is, what is the shape of free television in a streaming world? And that is what we're going to talk about. In a way, in a compressed timescale, the studios who are going direct, beginning to go direct, show the evolution of thinking. We've progressed from thinking about SVoD to thinking about hybrid models that combine SVoD and AVoD, Hulu, for example, through to free-driven or free-first platforms like Peacock from NBC, and imminent launch, we hear, from Christian and Viacom CBS, which will also be free-led hybrid model. Where does Australia sit on the scale of evolution towards streaming? Quite an interesting place. First of all, 66% of Australian homes have a paid streaming service. This second stat actually blew me away. I worked this out last week. Australia is the most highly penetrated Netflix market in the entire world, even more highly penetrated than the USA at 51%. Online advertising is already 2.6 times bigger than TV, and 45% of Australian homes have more than one streaming service. Now, a bit of negativity, but there's a positive message within this. SVoD does have an impact on free-to-air television because it has an impact on viewing. There is a strong relationship between SVoD penetration and the shift away from linear TV viewing. So that's one of those self-perpetuating cycles that I was talking about. Let's look at the Australian viewing day. Well, 2/3 still effectively with traditional incumbent players, linear broadcasters, linear pay TV channels, some of it time shifted. 1/3 is shifted to SVoD or free online video like YouTube. Now, is that 1/3 lost viewing, or is that actually where the opportunity lies? I would argue the latter. And let's look at how broadcasters can and are addressing that opportunity. Here is, or are, the major Australian broadcasters, and breakdown of how their viewers are watching their channels. First of all, linear only, people who only watch that traditional linear channel, you can see on the slide there. Add in people who watch that linear channel, but also watch the streaming broadcaster VOD service associated with said channel. and we've boosted audience up to, in many cases, 60+%. But perhaps a more interesting segment is this last segment, around 4% on average, who don't watch the linear channel at all, but do watch the streaming service. So recapturing audience through streaming. Not only that, but that audience is more engaged with with the streaming, with the brand of the channel. So not lost audience, recaptured new audience through streaming. It's also a highly attractive audience for advertisers. This is the traditional, or the big broadcasters again, on two axes. Basically, how young they are and how wealthy or classy they are. And I've lost my view of the slides here, so I'm going to have to keep looking over my shoulder. And they sit sort of somewhere to the left of the graph. But when we look at the viewers who are watching the streaming service associated with that channel, this is what it looks like. In short, streaming viewers are a lot younger and a bit classier. And that is a highly attractive demographic for advertising. So strong arguments for why adopting streaming strategies are absolutely crucial to shape the future of free-to-air commercial television. Here's another question for you. The question is, what is the second largest streaming platform in Australia? So the number one, of course, is Netflix. If you can read a bar chart, you may be feeling very clever now because the answer seems to be on there. Stan. But I'm going to say no, it's not. It's a hypothetical platform that does not exist. If we look at the streaming services of the broadcasters and their audience in a given month, they run to about 15–16% of population for any one service. But the combined reach of people who watch one or more of those services in a month is 34%, meaning the free-to-air public and commercial broadcasters are the second biggest streaming platform in Australia, if we think of them in combined entity terms. So in there may be a clue to an opportunity. And it's an opportunity that many are embracing around the world. So here's a few examples from Europe of public and commercial broadcasters working together on streaming platforms. BritBox in the UK, Salto in France, Join in Germany, NLZ in the Netherlands. What do they all have in common? Well, they're streaming collaborations between large commercial and public broadcasters, and they are hybrid in model. So they are embracing advertising, but they are embracing the subscription model as well. And the future of streaming is all about embracing AVoD. The agenda has been set by subscription to date. 2020 is the year of advertising-supported streaming. Nominally already a crowded market, Facebook, YouTube, of course, long been in that business. Device aggregators like Roku, also long in the business. Pure play AVoD like Pluto and Tubi and others. But 2020 will be about hybrid. Hulu, Peacock, short-form platform Quibi, and others. So embracing that model. And the story of AVoD I have illustrated in these three charts. At the moment, it's fairly low penetration. So these are some of the free-to-air AVoD services that exist today. US uptake or US viewing in any given month, knocking around 6–7%. Much of the content on those platforms is quite old. In some cases, 80% is more than 10 years old. So it's fed by archive at the moment. Still popular, still important, but nonetheless fed by archive. But if we think about how Netflix evolved in fairly short shrift, over 5 years they dropped their plus 5-year-old content from 50% to around 30%. And I would expect AVoD to follow a similar strategy. As market share increases, viewership increases, revenue increases, they will begin to feed in that newer content and of course move into original production for those platforms. And there's one more point about AVoD, and that is about shifting the agenda around advertising and shifting the relationship between the viewer and free-to-air television. And that is illustrated rather elegantly by Peacock from NBC Universal and their plan to completely disrupt the free-to-air advertising model by capping advertising at a maximum of 5 minutes per hour. Now, in the US, that is a massive shift in terms of ad load for programming. In some cases, they'll allow just one advert per show for a given sponsor on that platform, and that is for the free tier, the cheaper ad-supported tier as well. Maximum 5 minutes of advertising. So if Netflix has disrupted the subscription space, we're about to see similar disruption in the advertising-supported streaming space through variation and experimentation with ad load, which will disrupt the relationship between the viewer and the concept of consuming free, high-quality content from network television. And of course, it changes how we think about measuring success. In the advertising world, of course, we're concerned with viewing as our main metric. We're concerned with audience targeting and delivering demographics. In the subscription world, that becomes far less important. If you're Netflix or another paid streaming service, what you care about is trial starts, sign-ups, churn, and customer retention. So two conflicting measures of success as we move towards a hybrid streaming world that embraces both that subscription and the AVOD streaming model. Now, Justin, have I got time for 4 more slides on content, or do you want me to cut it if I'm quick? Okay, last on the agenda, and one more cycle for you, and one more opportunity for free-to-air, commercial, and local broadcasters. We are, of course, in the middle of a content boom. That's what it looks like, growing at about 30% a year in terms of global content spend, and set to continue at that rate for another 5 years at least. So it's not a bubble, it's a boom. There's another cycle, or 2 related cycles going on here. Streamers, needing global rights, moved into original production. That original production paid off for them. It was a success, and it helped them grow their market share. Others saw the opportunity to move in, local pay TV and local broadcasters, kicking off a self-perpetuating cycle of more and more original, less and less talent availability, higher and higher budgets, and the opportunity became local production. For competitive advantage, local original production, and because, compared to the US at least, it's a lot cheaper and a lot more effective in the local market. We're also moving to a world with direct studio strategies where holdback is the big agenda. So if we look at the big studio producers, up to 90% of the content they produce now is for internal entities. It's for their own channels and their own streaming service. And that, of course, feeds back into that cycle I was just talking about access to content and original production. Broadcasters are beautifully positioned to capitalize as the major studios go direct, hold back content, someone has to fill that space. There's a number of entities doing that. Netflix, of course, some of the local pay TV operators and telcos, but many of the local broadcasters as well are re-engineering at least part of their businesses towards a studio-led content strategy. Content is the future, and therein lies opportunity for local commercial free-to-air broadcasters as well, especially when we tie it all together with what I've been talking about platform evolution and hybridization. And with that, I will say thank you and come and grab me in the coffee break if you want to chat about any of the trends.
Very quickly, with the BritBox example, and there's the French one and the German one, do you recommend that the broadcasters here employ a similar model to capture that sort of the local eyeballs that they're...
That would be the hidden opportunity in that slide for the clever people in the room.
I spotted it.
Absolutely,
yeah.
he spotted it. But yes, not only because aggregating audience, what Christian was saying about bringing back navigation to a central point, but also because it opens new business opportunity because of that hybrid subscription advertising supported opportunity.
Do you see it happening here? Yes, no?
I think eventually it will happen pretty much everywhere, so I'd say yes, but don't ask me to put a timescale on it.
There's a bottle of booze in it, but anyone got a question for... Okay, we're saying no. Steve's telling me no, there is no bottle of booze in it. Sorry about that. You just have to come and ask me for one. I'm clearly just going to be giving it away by the end of the event. But Guy's going to be around here. He produced that research custom for this audience and for the event and for this market, so give him a massive round of applause for doing that and coming here from New York.